I've been very lucky that I've had a lot of great outcomes. Every
Hmm.
one of those has had more moments of sort of terror and almost death for the company, and big mistakes and things we clearly got wrong. And nobody ever talks about that part, but that's the majority of the time in most of those companies is really hard stuff. And I've talked about it a little bit before, but you kind of want to quit. Some of these things you just are like, oh, why am I putting myself through this every day? It's just brutal.
Welcome back to the Bold Play Podcast. I'm Ryan Prindiville. As this podcast series rolls along, we'll be pulling back the curtain on some of the biggest leaders in business and hear some of their stories behind their boldest ventures. This is more than a story, it's a playbook for action. I'm honored to have a friend and colleague and team member here from over many years, the CEO of Projectworks, Mark Orttung. Today, we're going to explore how Mark is powering a modern SaaS platform to scale globally, integrate AI tools, and redefine how consultants manage projects. Mark, welcome to the Bold Play.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Hey, Mark, I'd like to start with congratulating you. I think recently there were some announcements about your Series A funding and some big awards in New Zealand where Projectworks was started. You want to talk to the audience a little bit about the recent announcements?
Yeah, both of them were within a week or two, so it was kind of a fun stretch there. We raised 15.2 million US from a lead investor in the US, 10 Coves. And our current investors, Bridgewest and Punakaiki, both participated. So for us, it was a big victory. As many of you know, it's not that easy to raise money these days. So we were really excited to get that vote of confidence and the fuel to power our growth. And then the High Tech Awards is something in New Zealand that I had not been that familiar with, but it looks kind of like the Oscars. They have like 1,000 people come to this dinner and they do this really intense process where they go through nominations. I participated in the pitch to the judging panel for our category. We were nominated for the Best Emerging Company of the Year, and we actually won the award, which was amazing. I couldn't get back there for the award dinner, but in a way I thought it was better. Our founder, Matt Hayter, got up and gave a speech, and it really was a reward for the journey that he and his co-founders have been on from 2019 to today to build Projectworks to what it is today, and it was just really cool to see the team there rallying around him and him having that moment, kind of a recognition. Because I think in a lot of these startups, you just work really hard and there aren't moments to celebrate. And it's just really cool when you get something that crisp, like you should celebrate that. So it was great
Allow
to
the
see.
team to get away from the grind and put the tux on for a minute.
They did, yeah. And I was shocked that Matt had a tux, to be honest. He's almost always got a t-shirt on. So yeah, it was cool to see.
Well, you have a team that's built and grounded in deep engineering background, right? And so they're
100%.
Yeah, that's amazing. So maybe as we step into the next piece of the conversation here, before we jump into your background, can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing in the business world right now? And you're in a new spot this last 18 months, right, where the world has evolved. You're working it, like you said, with a team in New Zealand and a team in the US. You're seeing things a little bit differently than your history, which we'll talk about coming up.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the global aspect of this. We're a global startup, which is kind of fascinating to me. We operate in 5 countries, and that brings a level of complexity I've not dealt with in a company this early stage before, but it's really fun. But the other thing I would say is just the pace of everything is on steroids now. It's just crazy how fast things are changing in the market, new technology coming to market, new competitors showing up, new options for us as we build out our tooling. We have a tech stack for how we attract customers. We have a tech stack for how we keep our customers happy. And every week we get new options for things to apply. And it's great for us. It's fantastic.
So that's new options for how you operate your business internally, how your customers see you, right?
Yes.
And how you interact in the market, I assume, as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and the level of information you can get on somebody who might be interested in your company, how to best reach out to them, how to best serve them. It's amazing. Most of the stuff didn't exist a few years ago.
I'd love to dig in on that because I think that's going to be something we can talk about in the coming moments here. Why don't we start here as the next step with telling the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your business career and your background, and maybe kind of what led you to this moment at Projectworks too.
Yeah, I've kind of bounced around a bit. I started out with math, computer science as my background and training. And then I went to what at the time was called, actually my first year was Arthur Anderson. I was in their management consulting division. This ultimately became Accenture. But in the first year, it was an accounting firm. And I did all the accounting training that you have to do as a first year employee of an accounting firm. Um, 1 year in, they sponsored a new AI lab at Northwestern University, and through some dumb luck, I was able to get myself to be one of the people they sent there. So I went and I got a master's in AI in 89 to 91. I came away thinking AI was not ready for prime time, which it wasn't at that point.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I did a lot of work in the consulting. I stayed with what became Accenture for about 9 years. I helped them create an office in Palo Alto to get closer to tech companies and really work more deeply with. We had Intel as a customer. We had a company called Bay Networks, which was like a predecessor to Cisco on sort of the whole internet layer. Um, and just got really deep into a number of great internet and technology companies. I got the itch from there to do a startup. I started by actually writing a business plan that they funded and we did internally to build a SaaS company in the mid 90s for HR that was an Accenture company. And I learned that they were a great consulting firm and they were not a great venture firm, at least at that time. Maybe that's changed. So they shut it down after 2 years because we weren't yet profitable. And so that gave me a moment to go out and start working in software startups. So I did a series of four venture-backed startups: Genesis, which was in telecom; Get There, which was in corporate travel; Reardon Commerce, which was broad corporate services; and then Bill.com, which was an SMB finance play. So that was about 16 years. I had a fantastic run. Three of those, I was lucky enough, got to an IPO. Two of them were acquired, and then Bill.com is still independent. And Reardon, I learned a lot. So I always say you either, sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes you learn a lot. And at that one, I learned a lot. And then a friend of mine, Neeraj Gupta, talked me into coming back into services to run Nexi. And I was thinking I would try to find a CEO job in a SaaS company. And the early stage ones, a lot of what I was looking at, the sort of play was the company needs money. You will join. You have 3 months to raise money. And if you succeed, then you and the company will go. And you don't get to really change the product or the team. You're going to fundraise based on what's sitting there. And it just seemed like a really terrible way to learn how to be a CEO. And my odds of success seemed less than half, and less than 50-50. So he had this services company and he needed to exit because he had also created a venture fund. So I took over the services company at the time called Systems in Motion. One of the interview questions every single person asked me was, what do you think of the name Systems in Motion? Which got me to realize that there was some family squabble. Couldn't really figure out who was on which side, but I was like, we probably need a new name here. So the first thing I did when I got in there was rename it to Nexient, and that was a whole journey to build that brand. And we were about 39 million when I started. I did not know what I was doing as CEO, and I had not run a services company before. So after 2 years, we had gotten to 34 million, and it was not a great journey. Very close to the board getting rid of me. And luckily they didn't. And right around that point, we turned it around. We figured out several things, and that began a growth journey. And we took it from 34 million to 130 million in revenue. And we sold it to NTT in 2021. And I stayed a couple years to help them put it together with a bunch of other companies they bought, which was another adventure. And we created yet another new brand there called Launch by NTT Data, which was meant to be positioned against Accenture Song. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on there.
Mark, I love it, and I appreciate you sharing And I appreciate you sharing actually the things that I think we all take as the learning experiences. Some people might call them, you learn from when things don't go right. So sometimes, right?
Yes.
Maybe more so than you learn from the things that go right along the way. You've had a lot of things go right along the way, but I appreciate you sharing some of the things that maybe didn't go right as well. When you look back at yourself and you say some of those things that you learn from along the way, those learning experiences that you put them at, what are some of the key things that you can take away to say, hey, leaders today, maybe the next generation of leaders behind you and I, could take away from some of your experiences as things that they could learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them is I've been very lucky that I've had a lot of great outcomes. Every
Mhm.
one of those has had more moments of sort of terror and almost death for the company, and big mistakes and things we clearly got wrong. Like, and you don't nobody ever talks about that part, but that's the majority of the time in most of those companies is really hard stuff. And I've talked about it a little bit before, but you kind of want to quit. Some of these things you
Right.
just are like, how, why am I putting myself through this every day? It's just brutal. Like
Yeah.
at about the 2 year mark at Nexient, I would have loved to have been doing anything else. I mean, it was just rough. And you got to push through. That's where you actually, I think, learn the most. And there's usually a path through. You got to get creative sometimes. And it's, you guys have the bold play as the name here. I think you have to do bold things. So like one example, we were losing money and we were shrinking, and I went out and hired two or three very expensive people, some of whom you know quite well.
Yep.
And because my belief was the only way out of this thing was going to be to grow. And the only way to grow in a services firm is to have really talented people who know how to grow a services firm. So at the exact moment where we didn't have the money for it, I went out and hired three expensive people, and they pulled us out. They were the reason that we got out of the 39 to 34 million dollar journey and started, they were a big part of getting us going. And so yeah, it was scary though to do that.
Well, so I think I heard a couple of things. One, maybe the key for leaders, emerging leaders, and people think is intestinal fortitude, meaning
Yeah.
that willingness to deal with tough stuff every day and get up the next day and face it again, even if yesterday didn't go the way you thought it was going to go, right? And
Yeah,
you just kept
100%.
doing that and grinding it through. Then I
100%.
heard you say, be willing to take risks in those difficult moments. And in that case, transformation wasn't going to come from just working within. You said we have to force the growth to allow us to transform to get to the next step. I heard you say that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that so you're making a bet on two or three or four key leaders that are going to transform the business through sales, product, marketing, all the above, and try to push that next step is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think there's a theme that I learned through a lot of these startups, which is that revenue cures most of the other problems in your company. So if we could just start growing our revenue, it would give us time to fix all the other stuff. And
Right.
and many of the other problems would be fixed just by getting more work, more client projects, more new clients. Yeah. So,
I think that's a subtle thing that maybe a lot of leaders don't catch, right? Is that trying to fix the things that are difficult every day is maybe a distraction from focus on growing the business and satisfying the clients.
yeah, I think that's right. You cannot, in a consulting firm, when you're growing, you have all this great opportunity for your people to take on new roles. They can step up to whatever level they're willing to. If you're shrinking, there's none of that. Like, and so you may think you have all these sort of internal cultural issues, but if you had more new projects with exciting new clients, a lot of your internal cultural challenges would just go away because you'd suddenly be saying, I need somebody who can step up and do this. I need somebody who can do this, and everybody's happy again. Yeah, so it is counterintuitive, but go sell something is generally the right thing
Just
to
go
do.
sell something, get out and market, right?
Yeah.
All right. I like it. Okay. So now, so that was, you took this professional services company and evolved it through brand, through market, through selling something, through repositioning. but now you're back in the SaaS product world
Yes.
as a leader. You've been in the SaaS product world before a couple of times. Are there similarities and differences between when you did it at, say, Bill.com versus today?
Yeah, both. There's a long list of both. When I was, so I would, and part of why I wound up here is that Projectworks, where I am now, is kind of a perfect combination of Bill.com and Nexient, which I thought were completely unrelated things before. But we sold to small and mid-market companies at Bill, which I really developed a passion for, because you meet these people in 20, 30, 50 person companies, and they're just really good at what they do and
Right.
really close to their market. And,
Passionate, deep expertise. They want to build their business.
yeah, so I love that aspect of it. And then effectively, I was doing customer research for 9 years at Nexient and NTT because I was running a services firm. We needed a platform like Projectworks and couldn't find one. So we ended up building our own, which was a terrible idea. That's a whole nother story. And so, the chance to, I really liked the founders. I really liked the product they created, and I liked the way it solved the problem that we had had at Nexient. So for me, it was just this perfect opportunity. I frankly, honestly, was thinking I would take some time off, but I sort of had to say yes or no to jumping into this one. And I just said yes because it was too good to pass up. But back to your question of like what, maybe some differences, a few things. One, the pace, I'd say,
Yeah.
is wildly different now. So if you look at Nexient in 2016, part of what helped us was we did engineering outsourcing. So it was like, you have an idea, we can build it for you. And what we wanted to transition to was sort of trying to take the way startups work, bottle it up, and sell it as a service. And so most startups at the time had a product management lead, a design lead, and an engineering architect lead. And those three as a triumvirate would build great products. That hadn't really come to the world of outsourcing for software development yet. So in 2016, 2017, we were ahead of the curve for this idea of sort of product-centric services and selling of a team.
Almost a
And
little too early. That's a lesson learned in itself, is you're
yeah,
kind of bringing a new concept to the table a little before the market's ready for it.
yeah, exactly. And that was challenging, but it moved between 2017 and 2020. By 2020, it was mainstream. And
Mhm.
Gartner and Forrester were writing about it as if everybody did this. And in
Right.
2016, we were a little bit crazy for talking about it. So it was about a 3 year cycle to kind of go through that technology adoption curve. I think that pace, that's all just squished now. Like a lot of these changes are happening in 6 months or 12 months that used to take 36 months. Um, so you got to be on your game, and especially if you're in a consulting business, you got to be like one of the things that I thought Accenture was really strong at throughout its history is about every 3 years they would reinvent the firm, and they were really confident in doing that. I think it's no longer every 3 years. I think it's every year. It's every 6 months. You got to be looking at where's the market, where's our value.
Yep.
So yeah, so that pace is different. The other thing I'd say is the crowd. So
Oh,
when we
interesting.
were at, when we were
That's
at
one I haven't heard. I've heard people have talked about pace a lot, but the crowd. I want to let's dig in on what does that mean?
when I was at Bill.com, so I was there from 2007 to 2014. So we were doing SaaS. We were relatively early, although there had been I had already done Get There for 5 years and a couple
Yeah.
others. Um, we could get lost in the wilderness for 6 months and
Uh,
just figure out we made a mistake and come back. But nobody else was doing what we were doing in a serious way. There
right.
wasn't like 10 other companies that were also trying to solve this problem in the same way we were for the audience, specifically for small mid-market companies. Nowadays, there are a lot of people attempting to solve every problem. Doesn't matter what space you're in. You're very unlikely to be the only one in that space. There's a crowd that shows up, and it's global, and they're sophisticated. They've all, the knowledge has spread globally, so people know the playbooks, and you got to move fast. And a mistake that takes you out for 3 to 6 months is way more expensive than it would have been in 2010 or 2012 or something.
So I think that's a really interesting takeaway for our audience and for us as leaders, right? Is it's almost like a multiplier effect. pace and crowd. Pace
Yeah.
times crowd equals the opportunity or the risk at which, defining how fast you're going to move, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right. I think that there's an interesting scenario that says and maybe the pace has defined the crowd also, because with the new tools that are out there, with the spread of awareness, the spread of knowledge, like you said, across the world, and then the use of AI and tools allows smaller groups to define and build award-winning
Hmm.
products faster.
Yeah.
So there's
All these,
a
both
lot
of
more
these,
to the table, in the market, right?
both of these trends are going to accelerate, right? I think
Right,
the pace will be faster and the crowd will be bigger in six
right.
months or 12 months from now. So, yeah.
And so the windows are shortening to kind of to get that launch window going too, probably, and kind of gain terminal velocity kind of thing, right? Like to get to
Yeah.
that point where you're fast enough that people will pick you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. So does that change for when you're looking at it now too? Because this is the first time I think in your career here at Projectworks, we said it a minute ago that Projectworks was started in New Zealand,
Hmm.
and now you're bringing it to the U.S. market and into the global market as well. How does that factor into with pace and crowd and so forth too? How does that factor into the challenges you're facing?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It makes actually, in a way, it makes our problem harder because, for just one example, is currency. Everything we do, you can sort of select your currency, and our customers, we've attracted a set of customers that have operations across multiple countries. So they
Right.
really appreciate multiple entities, multiple currencies, but everything you do is a little more complicated than if you were just a pure, like Bill.com, we just focused on the US and that was it. We didn't worry about currency as an example. So
Oh,
the
interesting.
problem we're working on is a little more complex, but I think in the long run, businesses are more global today. And
Right.
so us being forced into that early is going to really help. It's just in our DNA to think globally because our team stretches across 2, 3 countries. And we're all very cognizant. And it's also global in a way that I haven't worked in before, which is both hemispheres. So when you bring in New Zealand, you get, the international date line, which is confusing. You get the fall. You can't use seasons. Like we have this argument all the time. Like you can't say we have a fall release because it's spring for them and fall for us. So like you get this very interesting global perspective just working through these kind of mundane little challenges. But I think that's actually better for us in the long run because our audience is global and the companies they're running are more and more global. And so I think our solution will be a better fit for them.
So it's interesting. And have you had any challenges with just integrating the cultures of the players? Like I like that you're talking about the time zones, and the mundane stuff is the interesting stuff. It sounds like and it kind of makes the mundane exciting.
Yeah, there's some funny so because of the dateline, when it's daylight savings time starting or ending, our gap changes. So there, and of course
Ah,
we and New Zealand don't change on the same day. So there's 4 days a year where all the meetings move by an hour, and depending on whether it was a New Zealand hosted meeting or a US hosted meeting, the other side, it doesn't work in their calendar anymore. It just like obliterates all the other meetings that were 1 hour earlier or 1 hour later, and so it's just sort of like you get really good at time zones and all this crazy stuff. Um, yeah, but culturally, I think um, we're a good match with New Zealand. I think New Zealand, especially the group we are working with, they're very tech savvy. Very Wellington has quite a good tech scene, so
right.
that hasn't been that hard. I think there's probably a little bit faster pace. So we've brought on
Oh,
a number of the folks from Bill.com early days have joined me. So like our CTO was one of the key engineers who built out Bill. And I think we're just used to a faster pace of change and just moving everything. So I think that may be one thing that culturally we're just like bringing everybody up to maybe a little faster pace than they were operating at. But generally it's been good. It's been a pretty easy and in the our winter, their summer, we only have a 3 hour gap. So it's effectively Hawaiian time, but the next day. So
some things that maybe you didn't expect to be working on or thinking about when you were thinking about probably the product when you first met the company.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Nexian also was 100% US, so I
Yeah.
never had to leave the country for that. Uh,
So maybe I'd be interested to go back to a couple of things. Is um, one, we talked a little bit about your process at Nexient, and you ended up doing a strategic sale
mhm.
in that case. And today, you hear people talk about, oh, the path to IPO, or you hear people talk about, working with private equity and different all the different types of funding options out there. You've been involved in a few different types, and you had to have a series of decisions at Nexient too about what you went through, and there's always reasons for it. I'm curious if you could talk about that conversation that it was maybe in your head, maybe with the board, maybe with
Yeah.
the leadership team about what are our options at that time in your career, and how did you come up with the final decision?
Yeah, there were a lot of things factoring into it. One was I was a little bit burnt out running a services firm for 7 years, especially through the grind of going down and then back up.
Yep.
It's tiring. So that was one,
Ar-
which was sort of me thinking about how many more years do I want to do this as personally, and the number was a very small number. I didn't have the energy to think about an IPO. Because Renee, a good friend of mine, took Bill public, so I get to talk to him a lot about that. And you have to think about it in pretty long-term horizons. Once you go
right.
public, you're committing to 5 to 10 years of running that company. So
Right.
that was one. Two was I had the trauma of that first 2 or 3 years where, like, one example was we weren't managing projects well, and we had a 50-person engagement that was supposed to go for a year and a half. We screwed up the way we managed it, and we got a notice that it was done. Like, unexpectedly, 50 people are rolling off and coming back to your bench. And at the time, we only had maybe 200 and something people billable. So it's like one quarter
Right.
of your billable staff is now no longer billable. So, like, you can imagine the
Almost a death notice for for a professional services company at the time.
yeah. So that like stuck with me. That sort of
Right.
trauma of that. So I was thinking about, would I want to run a services company as a public company and have to promise results and then beat them every quarter, right? And like, what if that happens again? You promise results and then you lose a 100-person job or a 50-person job without expecting it. Um, and then a couple other things. So there were environmental factors and, well, macroeconomic that we looked at. It had been at least 10 years since we'd had a proper recession at this point. This is uh, 2020, late 2020. So it had been a while since probably '08 was really the last
Yep.
really big recession we had had.
Almost a whole generation of employees have never been through tough times at that point.
Yeah. And my team and I would talk about it, just statistically, historically, we're going to have one. We don't know if it's in 6 months or three
Right.
years, but there's going to be one. Um, so And then we were in a bubble for our particular type of services. This trend we had found, which is selling teams that do product oriented software development. There was a bubble in that space that we could see, and so this was another interesting debate and maybe another bold move, which was um, my board didn't believe me that we were in a bubble, and and we had in 2019 explored selling the company, and we got two term sheets from two companies without a banker involved, and we ended up saying no because we felt that the value wasn't where we wanted it to be, and a large chunk of it was in an earnout post the sale. So because I believed we were in a bubble, I got some inbound interest from one of the top 10 firms, and I just personally worked that to get a term sheet out of them. So I didn't have a banker. I didn't really honestly know what I was doing, but I just treated it like a sales cycle and worked it till I could get a term sheet. And the term sheet had a really big number in it that they were willing to give us, right? Like way more than more than 70% higher than what I had when I asked our chairman, like, what's the number that would get you interested? This was like 70% more than that already. And so I took it to the board, and they're like, "Oh my God, we should do something with this." Um, And so within a week, we had hired
You
a
finally had
banker.
people listening.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it was, we put it in writing, and it that kicked off hiring a banker, which got 12 bidders, which then raised it another probably 20-30% on top of that. Um, and my take on it at that point was economically, if we, we're offered this price, if we say no and everything goes perfectly, I could get this company to double its revenue in the next 3 years, say. And the odds
Right,
of this are very low, to be honest, with all the risks. We might get 2/3 of this price at that point.
right.
And the odds of there being a recession or us just screwing something up or the market shifting, and I kind of felt like this idea of product centric development was running, that the curve has a downside to it. I think we were somewhere in the mainstream. So it felt like we would need to both find a new differentiator, which is harder at 130 million than it is at 30 million. Um, and also our scale was breaking. I think consulting firms hit these walls. I think there's one around 40 or 50 people. There's one around 200 or 300 people. I think
Hmm.
there's one around 1,500 people, and we were
You're
1,100 people.
100% right.
And so I was like, okay, we got to rebuild the company. We need a new differentiator, and we got to double the company in 3 years. If all that goes perfectly, we're still not going to get these multiples. So we might not even get this price. So, like, we should just do this. Like, to me, all that came together was like, it's so obvious we should do this. It's just such a good result.
Sometimes they say, what is it? Luck is being prepared to take advantage of an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it sounds like you had a little bit of timing, a little bit of preparedness, a little bit of validation and success along the way, and you were able to align the stars to get people to make a good decision there, and move forward. So that congratulations on that one. That sounded
Thank
like
you.
the right opportunity. I want to jump forward here too, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So now you're driving a product company, and
Hmm.
your customers are professional services. So, like you said, you've woven now many years of your career back together. You were leading a SaaS company. You're leading professional services company. Now you're leading a SaaS company focused on professional services.
Yeah.
And the world is changing. You said faster than ever. And one of those conversations, I think, is due to the what we're seeing in every single news article around AI, right?
Yeah.
And what's going on there. And I'm curious what your team, when your leadership team talks, what are you guys talking about both internally and then what your clients are seeing as well around AI?
Yeah. We do see it as a fundamental shift in the market that is really critical for us to really embrace.
Yeah.
And so, and that's, as we talked at the beginning, and in how we operate, and it's also in our product for how our customers are going to be operating. And so we've been investing on the product side. Yeah, we have a team that's been building sort of prototyping and figuring out where we see the best fit. And we've got some work we're coming out with probably by the end of the year around sort of doing proposals with an AI assistant helping you, and really getting just getting a really it's not only for us bringing AI into it, but it's extending kind of the value chain for what we
Right.
do to helping people just go sell something, right? Like, so it's kind of goes back to the way I had to work on our firm at Nexient, is you need tools to help you sell. And I believe it's a perfect big bet to place with AI and what it can do in terms of helping you create proposals and win new work. We're also doing a lot of smaller pieces throughout the product that you'll start to see, where there may be a small decision you need to make today that you're doing in an old school way, and that'll just pop up and help you with, here's a recommendation of what you should do. And so there's sort of a quick answer for you there. So you'll see a lot of that coming soon as well. And then we've also, across everything we do, again, how we look to get people into the funnel to consider Projectworks and to think about us as a team and think about our product. We use a lot of AI tools to do that. And then to keep them happy once they're on the product. It's quite a complex product. There's a lot of power to it, but we've actually got now like some AI agents that are pretty well trained on our knowledge base and can answer questions really well. So that can help whatever hour of the day or night it is, you can get a question answered, and it's doing a really good job actually of answering those questions. So it allows our team to focus on more advisory kind of assistance to our customers and less just sort of ticket answering. Uh,
So you've really embedded it, and you really embedded the thought process and the mindset into all parts of the business. How
yeah,
you, when you get up in the morning, how you think about clients, how you think about operating the business, and then how you think about servicing your clients going forward as well. And how's the market reaction with the clients been so far?
I think that it's been great. We haven't done that much promotion yet of what we're doing, so I think that's something you'll start to see.
Here we
This is
go. We're kicking it off today.
yeah, so yeah, we're getting
I
out
like
there
it.
and talking about it, and I think it's going to be great. I've done a lot of sort of one-on-one discovery sessions, just understanding how people are selling work today, and the interest and demand is off the charts. They really are excited about what we're doing, and so that's a nice sort of feedback loop that's it's confirming that we're going in the right direction. But yeah, excited to get to the next step and really get something in people's hands and get their feedback and tune it. And like any product, you gotta iterate a few times to get it really nailed. But we're gonna do that quickly, and it's exciting to do.
Earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that you had been introduced to Projectworks, and then you quickly, I think, transitioned your role from, I think, an advisor and maybe board member role, and then into a more active role. Can you talk a little bit about the thought process that was going on in your head, and what kind of drove some of that transition?
Yeah, I think it was maybe 2022 when I first met Matt and Doug, two of our three co-founders, and I really liked them. I liked what their product did, and I could see that the problems and the go-to-market were very similar to Bill. So I just asked to be on their board. I just said, look, if you guys would have me, I'd love to be a board member. And so we did that fairly quickly, that I joined the board. And at the time, I was still running Launch by NTT Data, and so I had probably another year of that while I was on the board. And and then when fast forward a year, I left Launch in maybe November of 23, and pretty quickly one of the investors came to me and said, "Hey, now that you don't have a day job, I think you should consider joining Projectworks or one of the other companies." He had a whole portfolio of like 80 companies and running one of them, and we went through a bunch, and I said, really the only one um, that I'm interested in is Projectworks, but I don't really want to disrupt the team. I like the team, that's why I'm involved. And so then he kind of pushed on me. So I went and I spent time with Matt and just said, "What do you think of this? Before I even start this process, what's your take? As if you or the other founders don't want this to happen, I'm not going to do it." And he was like, from the first minute, very pragmatic about it, and just like, "Oh, I think we have a better chance of succeeding if you join than if you don't." So I was blown away by that. And so then he and the other founders seemed quite positive on it. So then it just kind of from there turned into this snowball that's what I was saying. I was going to take 6 months and figure out what to do next. And this was maybe 2.5 months into that. Became pretty clear I should either say yes or no to doing this. And it was just too much fun, too good to pass up. Yeah, so here I am.
I mean, congratulations again, and
Thanks.
that's a pretty awesome story, because it is interesting how sometimes life, they say, what life conspires to give you what you need, versus what you want, right? And
Yes.
this is almost one of those examples. You weren't exactly looking for that, and a couple of things collided from your past to pull this together. That's pretty cool. Given that, and I'm going to circle back to, helping future leaders and aspiring leaders and emerging leaders who are going through these transformative changes. You've gone through a few different places along the way. I'd like to go back to lessons learned, and if you're mentoring, you're coaching, that next generation of C-suite leader. What are some of the big takeaways?
I think maybe from Nexient, there were sort of three things that I took away that I think probably apply to every business. So one was, how do you differentiate the company? And for
Yeah.
us, it was this move into, we ended up boiling it down to life's too short for crappy software, but it was really about we build
Sometimes being
software.
direct is the best way. Life's too short for crappy software. I like
And that meant, yeah, there were, because when I looked, there were 10,000 firms globally that did what we did, that had engineers that would build something for you. And I was like, how on earth do you stand out amongst 10,000 firms? And so we boiled it down to that. Like, we have product design and engineering, and we're going to build you great software. It's going to be beautiful and people will love to use it. And that's all we do. So we had to start saying no to all kinds of stuff. Like, will you do our SharePoint deployment? No, we will not do your SharePoint deployment anymore. We used to. We could make okay margins on it, but we want to be this one thing and be really good at it. So number one is differentiation. Number two, build a really great go-to-market team. That because we were trying something new in the market, especially in consulting, you need people who can sell it and defend it, right? So our typical buyer would come to us and say, can you give me 3 engineers? Because I have this problem. And we would need to change that into, actually, no, that would be a terrible answer for you. If we just give you
right.
3 engineers and you manage them, you'd be much better off with a team of 10 that includes our leader, our design person, our product person, and a team of engineers. And we're going to get whatever business result you need. But that takes a pretty strong person on the sort of customer facing selling side, and they need to be a practitioner. They can't really be just pure sales. They need to also have done software development for that to be a
We
credible
talk a lot
argument.
about focusing on the outputs rather than the inputs in
Yeah.
that case. And it
Yeah.
sounds like
So
you had the same mentality at the time.
yeah. And then the third thing I called 1,000 little things. Everything matters. And we did this well at Nexient because we were early as an agile software shop. And so in Agile, you every 2 weeks you do a retrospective and you just sort of say what's working, what's not working, and you get a
Mhm.
little bit better. We started applying that to everything, just trying to take friction out of the company. And over 7 years, it really made a difference. Like, we had a lot of much smoother processes. We could make decisions quickly. We could move quickly on a proposal, whatever it might be. And they were all little details. None of them stand out particularly, and there were thousands of them, but everything matters. There was sort of a Steve Jobs quote that, like, I forget what it was, but there was something like there was some printer that was broken or something, and he personally went over and fixed it. And somebody was like, "Why did you do that?" And he's like, "We can't be a company that just lets stuff like that go. Like, it's just, it matters. Like, and so like you kind of shift the mindset." So yeah, so it's differentiation, a fantastic go-to-market team, and then 1,000 little details on how you operate the company. I think it applies to any business. I don't think it is particularly unique to even to consulting businesses. Um,
I I think it applies to like you said, every single company. I think it probably applies in SaaS businesses, it applies in manufacturing distribution businesses, applies in privately held businesses, public companies, those kind of philosophies, they work for any leader. They get up in the morning, they should be thinking about that for sure.
yeah.
Um, I think what I'd like to do is jump into our rapid fire segment that I like to do at the end of
Okay.
our podcast, if you're willing.
Yeah.
Um, and I usually do 5 questions here, and so I'll run them through with you. And the first one is, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but maybe we got to get a quick answer to it. Is what's one thing you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Ownership matters. So, like, when
Hmm.
I got into startups, I started to understand the venture capital model, and how the employees get some stock in the company. If things go well, that's a great way to reward people. Yeah. So I wish I had learned earlier to start focusing on ownership, and that games capitalism. That's where the capital is.
Right.
So
That,
yeah.
and I think that's a really good point and very important. All right, let's go to the next one. What is one trait that every leader must have?
I think they've got to be growth minded. You're going to fail a lot, and you've got to be good at saying, okay, that didn't work. Like, now what? Like, rather than, oh crap, I'm not doing this right. We're in a terrible company, whatever. Like, you just can't think about it that way. It's, yeah, that didn't work. And there's going to be 10 more things that don't work.
I
So
love
like,
it.
now what?
Growth minded. All right.
Yep.
I like it. All right. That's a good one. What is one mistake or an easy mistake that leaders often make?
That's a good question. I think feeling like you have to get everything right and own it all and keep it, like, maybe it's like keep the challenges a secret. So like there were
Yeah.
moments at Nexient where we were close to the edge, and I was trying to just keep everybody from knowing that. I was afraid that the team would freak out, they would all leave, they would, but the reality is, with most challenges, if you tell your team, they want to help and they rally around you and they start bringing you ideas you hadn't thought of. And yeah, so I think the mistake a lot of people make, and I've made it many times, is you feel like you have to keep the challenges to yourself and kind of hold them all in, and you don't. Like, people want to help, and the problem gets easier if you share it.
It's funny you say that, and I 100% agree with you. And I think that hearing people even say what you just said will be probably cathartic to a lot of leaders. And I think just saying that it's okay to accept that not everything goes well every day,
Yeah.
and let's get up and make it happen better tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's important. All right, so here's the next one. Uh, who inspires you most today?
Kind of a random one, but Jamie Dimon is someone I've been following a bit lately, and he's just one of these people that arguably is one of the most influential people in our country.
Totally.
I mean, running the largest bank, and
Globally. Yep.
when the global economy fails, they call him. The government calls him and makes him buy some failing bank, or like it's a pretty interesting role the guy's in, and he clearly could just stop and go sit on a beach if he chose to. But the guy really cares. It's yeah. So anyway, I find it fascinating because also, if you look at we when I was at Bill.com, we got to work with a lot of banks.
Uh-huh.
The way JP Morgan Chase is operated, they have this thousand little thing nailed, right? Like, they just do things well. They have talented people that have really good processes, and they execute well. So there's something he's doing there that's working.
I heard an interview with him the other day, and I walked away the exact same thinking that you just did. That you just outlined as saying, "This is somebody who cares, who's doing amazing things, and who's built an amazing business out of a lot of different pieces, and it took 1,000 little things, like you said." So I think that's great. All right, so let's go on to the last of our quick fire questions. Do you have any favorite leadership books or podcasts that you're currently willing to recommend to people?
Yeah, probably a lot, but the one I'd go with is a podcast, Acquired. I don't know if
I,
you've listened to
I
it,
love
but
Acquired. Love it.
it's just
You guys are
they
great.
just go so deep. They're such nerds, and they go so deep on a story that, like, literally an episode can be 3.5 hours sometimes. And um like, there's one on M&M Mars recently. So if you
Amazing. It was great.
yeah, I was like a 3 or 3.5 hour, and I started listening on an hour and a half flight, and so I got partway through it, and then I was listening in the Uber, and then I got home, and I just had to keep listening because they're so good at telling this story that I just was like, yeah, addicted to it and it is way too long for that level of storytelling that's so good. But yeah, they're really great. So they yeah, just look through their catalog, find a topic that you're interested in or a person you're interested in, and they're all awesome. I haven't
They're
listened to a bad
all
one.
amazing. The M&M Mars one is a funny one. I was listening to that one, and I got to finish it while I was actually in Pennsylvania with my daughter, not far from Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh, fun.
and she was bored to tears, clearly, but it was about chocolate, which was interesting. And there was a story about how the competition with Hershey early on, and that I thought that was pretty great. A little story there. And the Microsoft episodes, because there were several of those, and they were really great as well. So I'm with you. I love that podcast. It's been really great. Deep long form content on business problems, and the history behind it is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mark, I think This has been a really exciting conversation. I really appreciate the time. You always share really honest and inspiring stories, and you've been a lot of places and seen a lot of things. So I appreciate you sharing it with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to chat with you. And yeah.
And we get
Great.
to talk a lot, so we'll keep it going. We don't always share everything with the world, but we get to do that today.
Absolutely. Love it.